Samantha had always believed that love, at its core, was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to flow like a quiet river, gently guiding you through the highs and lows of life. But lately her relationship with Adam had felt more like navigating a stormy sea, each wave bigger than the last, each moment of calm overshadowed by the next fight. And it wasn't just her relationship with Adam that was complicated. The presence of Noah, Adam's best friend, had thrown everything into turmoil. It started subtly. A shared glance between Noah and Samantha here, an innocent laugh at a private joke there. But soon, those quiet moments began to make her heart race. She tried to ignore the feeling, tried to convince herself it was just a passing attraction, something harmless. After all, she loved Adam, didn't she? They'd been together for over a year and everything had been perfect at first. But now the cracks were showing. Noah's unexpected charm had wormed its way into her thoughts in ways she couldn't control. And worse, Adam seemed to sense it. The tension was palpable, like static in the air before a thunderstorm. Samantha couldn't help but notice the coldness between the two men. Adam had always been the more dominant one in their trio. He and Noah had been friends for years. But recently, it was as though there was a silent war brewing between them. Conversations would start out normal, but within minutes, the mood would shift. There would be the sharp edges of words, the brief silences where neither man seemed to know how to act around the other. Samantha did her best to smooth things over, to act like everything was fine, but deep down she knew something was wrong. It all came to a head one night in late spring. The three of them had gone out for drinks at a quiet bar, a place they frequented on weekends. Adam was already a little tipsy by the time they arrived, and Noah, as usual, had that quiet edge to him, like he was always holding back something he didn't want anyone to see. Samantha tried to focus on the conversation, but she could feel the tension building like a pressure cooker ready to explode. She hadn't expected it to happen, not like this. The fight started when Adam accused Noah of something. He couldn't even remember what it was now, but the words were sharp, venomous. The air grew thick with the weight of unspoken history and unacknowledged feelings. Samantha watched in stunned silence as Noah stood up, his face hard and unreadable, and said, "I'm not doing this tonight." Without another word, he turned and walked out of the bar. Adam slammed his hand down on the table, the sound echoing in the quiet bar, and muttered something under his breath. Samantha tried to reach for him to calm him down, but he was already storming out after Noah. She sat there, staring after them, torn between following them and staying behind. A part of her knew this fight was inevitable, that it had been building up for weeks, but that didn't make it any easier to watch. She felt a pang in her chest as she watched them disappear into the night, their figures fading into the dark. She wanted to go after them, to fix everything, but something told her that this was a storm that couldn't be weathered by just talking. No, this felt different. This felt like the beginning of something much darker. Minutes passed, then an hour, and still there was no sign of either of them. Samantha waited, her fingers nervously tapping the glass in front of her, her mind racing. She texted Adam twice, asking if he was okay, but there was no response. Her heart began to pound in her chest, a slow, steady thud that seemed to echo in her ears. Where were they? Why hadn't they come back yet? Samantha tried calling Adam's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic began to rise in her throat, and she stood up, feeling her legs shake beneath her. She told herself to stay calm. It was probably nothing. Maybe they just needed time to cool off. But deep down she knew it wasn't that simple. Something felt off. Adam wasn't the type to just walk away and disappear without a word. And Noah. Noah had always been the mysterious one, the one who never fully let anyone in. But tonight he had been different. There was something in his eyes when he left that sent a chill down her spine. Something that made her question whether there was more to this fight than she realized. She couldn't sit here any longer. She grabbed her coat, quickly exiting the bar and stepping into the chilly night air. The streets were empty, the sound of her heels tapping against the pavement the only thing breaking the silence. She took out her phone again and tried calling Adam. Still nothing. Her heart raced in her chest as she walked, the adrenaline pushing her forward. She knew where they might have gone. There was a secluded park just outside of town, a place where Adam and Noah had once gone to talk things through during past arguments. She hoped, prayed that they were there. The wind picked up and she pulled her coat tighter around her body, the darkness of the night swallowing her whole. When she reached the park, she scanned the area but saw no sign of either of them. The swings swayed gently in the breeze, the empty playground eerily silent. She walked further into the park, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Adam?" she called softly, but there was no reply. Then, just as she was about to turn around, she heard something, a noise coming from the far side of the park, near the woods. It was a faint sound, almost like a struggle, a muffled voice. Samantha froze, her heart skipping a beat. She hurried toward the noise, her footsteps quick and heavy against the ground. But as she rounded the corner, she stopped dead in her tracks. There, lying motionless on the ground, was Adam's car. And inside, Adam wasn't moving. Her hands shook as she fumbled with her phone, dialing 911, but her breath caught in her throat when she saw the figure standing in the shadows. Noah. He was watching her, his face expressionless, his eyes too dark to read. Samantha's heart clenched in her chest as she stepped back, but the next words out of Noah's mouth made her feel as though the ground beneath her feet had vanished. "He's gone, Sam. It's too late." And in that moment, Samantha knew. Everything was about to change. Samantha's mind spun as Noah's words echoed in her ears. "He's gone, Sam. It's too late." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, and for a moment she thought she might choke on them. Adam, her Adam, was gone. She could barely process it. Everything felt too surreal, like she was in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she tried to steady herself. Her breath was shallow, the world around her fading into the background. The only thing she could focus on was Noah. Noah stood there, unmoving in the shadows of the trees. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something cold, distant, almost emotionless. Samantha's stomach churned as she took a step back, her feet unsteady on the grass beneath her. What happened?" she finally managed to whisper, her voice barely audible. Her heart pounded in her chest, but Noah remained silent, staring at her with that same hard expression. It was as if he had become a stranger to her in that moment. The man she had known, the man she had trusted, was standing before her, and yet she couldn't recognize him anymore. Samantha's eyes darted toward Adam's car, still parked in the same spot. The windows were slightly fogged up, the engine off. She wanted to run over to it, to shake Adam awake and demand that everything go back to normal. But the sick feeling in her gut told her the truth. Adam wasn't going to wake up. Not now. Not ever again. "I tried to help him." Noah's voice broke through the thick silence, soft but laced with something regretful. "I didn't want this to happen. You have to believe me." Samantha's head spun. "You didn't want this to happen? Then why didn't you tell me what was going on? Why didn't you tell me what happened tonight?" Noah's jaw clenched as he glanced away, his gaze falling to the ground. There was a long pause, and for a fleeting second, Samantha thought he might just turn and leave as if nothing had happened. But then he looked back at her, his eyes dark with something Samantha couldn't quite read. "It wasn't supposed to go down like this, Sam," he said quietly. "There's more you don't know. More than you'll ever understand." Samantha's heart skipped a beat. The panic that had been creeping inside her suddenly burst through her chest, suffocating her. "More? What more?" "Noah, please, I don't understand. What happened? Where's Adam? What are you hiding?" Noah hesitated, as if weighing his next words. He took a slow step toward her, his face now just inches from hers. "I never wanted you to be caught up in this, Sam. I swear. But I should have told you. I should have told you everything. The truth is, Adam wasn't the person you thought he was." The air between them grew thick with tension, as if the weight of Noah's words was pressing down on her chest. Samantha's mind raced. She couldn't process this. Adam, her Adam, was gone, and now Noah was telling her he wasn't the person she thought he was? "No." Samantha shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, Noah, don't do this. Adam wasn't perfect, but he was everything to me. He loved me. We were planning a future together. He wouldn't have done it, would he?" Noah interrupted, his voice edged with a bitterness that caught her off guard. "He wouldn't have killed himself, would he?" "But he didn't kill himself, Sam. He was killed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing." Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes widened. "What do you mean? Killed? Who would want to hurt Adam?" Noah took a deep breath, his face softening slightly as he glanced back toward the darkened trees, as though he were searching for the right words to say. His eyes were tired, like he had been carrying a heavy burden for far too long. "It's not what you think. Adam and I, we weren't just friends. We had things we never talked about. Business, Sam. Things we never got into. Adam had gotten into some shady stuff and it went bad. I'm not proud of it, but it's true." Samantha felt a chill run through her, one that had nothing to do with the cold air around her. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides, her whole body shaking with disbelief. "What kind of shady stuff, Noah? You're telling me Adam was involved in something illegal? And you didn't tell me? How long was this going on? Why Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me keep thinking everything was fine? Noah looked away, unable to meet her gaze. I didn't want you to get involved, Sam. I didn't want you to get dragged into all of this. And I didn't want you to know about the other people involved. The ones who... He stopped himself, his voice faltering. Samantha took a step forward, her heart racing. The ones who what? Who were involved with Adam? Who did this to him? Noah's gaze shifted, and for the first time, Samantha saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. I don't know who did it, but I have a feeling it wasn't just random. Adam's death wasn't a mistake. It was planned. Someone wanted him out of the way, Sam, and I think they knew exactly how to make it happen. The words felt like a punch to her gut. She staggered backward, feeling the cold sweat on her palms. No, this can't be true. You're telling me Adam was murdered? Who would want to kill him, Noah? Who would go that far? Noah opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, they both heard a rustling sound from behind them, the sharp crack of a branch breaking in the distance. Samantha froze, her heart skipping a beat. The night was eerily quiet except for that one noise. Noah's eyes widened with panic, and he immediately grabbed Samantha's arm, pulling her behind him. Get down, he whispered urgently, his voice low and strained. Someone's here. Samantha's mind raced. Who could it be? She felt her body tense up as she crouched down, hiding behind a thick tree trunk with Noah. Her breath was shallow as she strained to hear. The air was heavy with anticipation, her mind a whirlwind of questions. Who was out there? What were they doing here? And was Adam's death really connected to some dangerous people? And then she heard it, a voice. A voice that sent a cold shiver down her spine. Where is she? I know she's here. The voice was unfamiliar. Authoritative. And it was close. Noah's grip tightened around Samantha's wrist, his eyes filled with terror. We need to leave. Now. But before they could move, they heard the sound of footsteps approaching, and then, suddenly, a flashlight beam cut through the darkness, directly landing on them. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't see the person's face, but one thing was clear. The night was about to take an even darker turn. Samantha's heart raced as the beam of light from the flashlight hit her face. The sudden brightness was blinding, and she instinctively squinted, trying to shield her eyes with her hand. But Noah's grip on her wrist tightened, pulling her back into the shadows. The footsteps grew louder, each one echoing like a drumbeat in her ears. Stay quiet, Noah whispered harshly, his breath shallow. His voice, usually calm and composed, now trembled with something raw, fear. Samantha nodded, her throat dry. Her mind was spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the last few hours. Adam was dead. Murdered. And now someone was hunting her. She had no idea who they were or what they wanted, but she couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at her gut, that this was just the beginning. The flashlight beam moved across the park, swinging in erratic arcs. Samantha held her breath, praying that they wouldn't be spotted. But the person with the flashlight wasn't slowing down. It was as though they were searching for something, or someone, and they were getting closer by the second. Noah, Samantha whispered, her voice trembling. Who are they? What do they want with us? Noah didn't answer immediately. He was watching the flashlight beam, his body tense like a coiled spring. His eyes darted between the shadows and the path the light was following, his jaw clenched. I don't know, he muttered, his voice strained. But we need to get out of here. Now. Samantha's pulse quickened as she realized the danger they were in. The light was so close now, and with each passing second she could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. It was like being trapped in a nightmare, where no matter how hard she tried to escape, she couldn't. The footsteps stopped just a few feet away, and for a moment the world went completely silent. Samantha's breath hitched in her throat, and she dared to peek over her shoulder. Through the darkness she could make out the shadow of a figure standing still. The flashlight was now aimed directly at them. She felt Noah's hand tighten around her wrist, pulling her back further into the trees, but the sudden motion caused a twig to snap underfoot. It was small, but the sound seemed deafening in the stillness of the night. The figure jerked toward them, the flashlight beam now trained on the spot where they had been moments before. Samantha's blood ran cold. They'd been seen. Before she could react, Noah yanked her harder, his grip like iron as he dragged her through the woods. She stumbled, barely managing to keep up with him. The footsteps behind them started again, faster now, more frantic. Go, Sam. Run. Noah barked. She didn't need to be told twice. Her legs moved instinctively, pushing her forward through the thick underbrush. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts as she ran. Her mind was a blur of confusion and fear. What had happened to Adam? Why was someone after them? Was it because of Adam's secrets, secrets that Noah had hinted at but never fully explained? Noah's hands stayed locked around her wrist as they continued to sprint through the woods. They didn't dare look back, but Samantha could hear the pounding of feet behind them, growing louder with every step. Whoever was chasing them wasn't giving up. She could feel her chest tightening, her lungs burning from the effort, but she couldn't stop. Not now. Not when she knew that Adam's death wasn't an accident, that someone had done this on purpose, and that they were trying to silence her too. She could sense it. She could feel it in the air, the suffocating weight of danger that pressed down on them both. Suddenly the path ahead cleared. The trees thinned out, revealing a narrow road in the distance. The dim glow of streetlights flickered on the far horizon. They were close. She could taste freedom in the air, but it was tainted by the fear that whoever was chasing them wasn't far behind. Noah pulled her toward the road, but just as they reached the clearing, a shout pierced the night. "Stop right there." Samantha froze. Her body went rigid at the sound of the voice. It was deep, commanding, the type of voice that made her blood run cold. She had no idea who this person was, but the authority in his tone was enough to make her hesitate. "Don't make me ask again," the voice called out, closer now, almost as if the figure had appeared out of nowhere. "You're not getting away." Noah glanced at Samantha, his eyes wide with panic. For the first time she saw fear in his eyes, true, unfiltered fear. "Keep running, Sam," he urged, his voice a low whisper. But before they could move, a dark shape emerged from the shadows. The figure stepped into the dim light, and Samantha's breath caught in her throat. It was a man, tall and imposing, his face hidden by a black mask. He was holding a gun, the cold metal glinting in the faint light. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Everything about him screamed danger. Samantha's heart slammed against her ribs as her pulse quickened. This was no ordinary person. This was someone who had been trained to hunt. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And now it seemed he was closing in on them. Noah stepped in front of Samantha, blocking her with his body. His posture was tense, like he was ready to fight, but Samantha could tell from the look in his eyes that he didn't have the upper hand. "Not now. Not against this man." "Who are you?" Noah demanded, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. "What do you want from us?" The masked man didn't answer. Instead he stepped forward, the gun raised in his hand. "Move aside," he said coldly, his voice almost emotionless. "This is between me and her." Samantha's blood ran cold as the realization hit her. He was after her. Not Noah. But before she could react, there was a sudden noise, a roar, a loud crash, followed by the screeching of tires. Samantha looked up just in time to see a car barreling down the road, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The masked man's attention snapped toward the car, momentarily distracted. That was all it took. Noah grabbed Samantha's hand and pulled her into the safety of the trees, moving quickly, their footsteps barely making a sound. They didn't stop to look back. The only thing that mattered was getting as far away as possible. As they ran, Samantha's mind raced. Who was that man? Why was he after her? And what did he mean by, "This is between me and her"? But there were no answers, not yet. And with every step she knew, things were only getting more dangerous. Samantha's legs burned as she and Noah sprinted through the woods, her breath coming in rapid gasps. They had barely managed to escape the masked man, but the adrenaline that had fueled their flight was beginning to fade, leaving her feeling drained and uncertain. She had never felt so helpless, so completely out of control. Adam was dead and now someone was hunting her, and for what reason she still didn't understand. Noah was still pulling her through the trees, his grip tight on her wrist, his face a mask of determination. But even he seemed rattled, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a barely contained panic. Samantha could feel the tension in his body, and it only made her more terrified. They had no idea who the man with the gun was or why he was after her, but she knew one thing for certain. They couldn't stop running. Not yet. Finally, after what felt like hours of running through the darkened woods, they reached an old, dilapidated cabin. Its wooden exterior was weathered and worn, the windows cracked, but it was the first place they had found that offered even the slightest bit of shelter. Noah stopped in front of the door, his breath labored as he turned to face Samantha. "We can't stay out here. It's too risky," he said, his voice tight. "But this cabin, it's safe for now. I know a way inside." Samantha nodded, too exhausted to argue. She was in no position to protest. They had to hide and they had to do it quickly. Noah pulled her inside through a broken window, his body moving with swift efficiency. The cabin was dark, the air thick with dust and the smell of mildew. The silence inside was suffocating, and for a moment, Samantha just stood there trying to gather her thoughts. Her head was spinning. Adam was dead and she had no idea why. Who could want him gone? And why had Noah been so intent on keeping secrets? There was so much that didn't make sense. Noah moved to a corner of the room, his eyes scanning every shadow, every crevice. Samantha followed his gaze, but the cabin remained eerily still. No sign of anyone else. Yet the fear lingered in her chest, that constant gnawing feeling that they weren't safe yet. The man with the flashlight, the one who had been chasing them, could still be out there. He wouldn't give up so easily. "We have to talk," Samantha said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was shaking, but she tried to keep her tone steady. "Noah, what's going on? Who was that man? Why was he after me?" Noah's jaw tightened as he turned to face her, his eyes shadowed with guilt. He didn't speak at first, as if weighing his words carefully. Finally he spoke, his voice low and measured. "I told you I didn't want you involved in this. I never wanted you to get dragged into any of this. But now," he shook his head, rubbing his hands over his face. "Now it's too late." Samantha stepped closer to him, her heart pounding. "Too late for what? What do you mean? You can't just keep feeding me half-truths, Noah. I need to know what happened to Adam. You're hiding something." Noah's eyes flickered to the ground, as if the weight of her words was too much for him to bear. He was silent for a long time, the tension in the air thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally he spoke, his voice tight with emotion. "Adam wasn't just some guy you met in a bar, Sam. He wasn't just a guy you fell in love with. He had connections. Dangerous ones." He paused, looking around as though making sure no one else was listening. "He got involved with the wrong people. People who didn't care about anything but their own power." Samantha's stomach twisted into knots as she processed his words. "What do you mean, connections? What kind of people are you talking about?" Noah let out a deep breath, his eyes never leaving her. "I can't go into all the details, but Adam got involved with some criminals. People who were into things like money laundering, illegal betting, and worse. He thought he could get out, but once you're in, there's no way out." Samantha's mind reeled. Adam? The man she had loved, the man who had held her in his arms and made plans for their future, had been a part of something so dark? She didn't know how to process the betrayal she felt, how to reconcile the Adam she had known with the one Noah was describing. "But why didn't you tell me? You could have warned me. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, her voice shaking. Noah's face hardened, a flicker of guilt crossing his features. "I didn't want to drag you into this mess. You deserved better. But when I saw what was happening, I knew it was too late to stop it." Samantha's breath hitched as the pieces began to fall into place. "So you knew Adam was in danger? You knew someone might want to hurt him and you didn't tell me?" She felt a surge of anger, but it was tinged with sorrow. The man she had loved had been living a lie, and she had been kept in the dark. Noah lowered his head, his voice barely audible. "I didn't know it would end like this. I thought I could keep you safe. But they found out. They knew what Adam had been hiding. And now they're after you too." A shiver ran down Samantha's spine. She wasn't just a bystander in this, she was part of the danger now. Whatever Adam had been involved in, it was pulling her in too, whether she liked it or not. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a loud bang from outside the cabin. The noise was followed by the sound of footsteps, heavy, purposeful, coming closer. Samantha's heart lurched in her chest. "They're here," Noah muttered urgently. "We don't have much time." Samantha's mind raced. They had to get out. They couldn't stay here. But where could they go? What were they running from? Who were these people? Noah grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back door. But before they could make it to the exit, the front door crashed open with a force that rattled the entire cabin. A figure stepped into the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a mask. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't the same person from before. This man was different, bigger, more menacing. "Where are they?" the man growled, his voice muffled by the mask. "I know you're here." Samantha's heart raced as she exchanged a terrified glance with Noah. This was it. They were trapped. Noah stepped in front of her, his voice low and strained. "Stay back, Sam. I'll handle this." But before Samantha could process what was happening, another figure appeared in the doorway. This one was armed with a gun. Her blood ran cold. There was no way out now. The walls were closing in. Samantha's heart hammered in her chest as she watched the two figures standing in the doorway, their eyes scanning the room with a cold, calculated gaze. The masked man with the gun took a step forward, the faint glint of metal catching the dim light of the cabin. The other figure, a hulking presence, his face hidden beneath a dark hood, remained motionless, his eyes narrowed, waiting for something. Noah stood protectively in front of Samantha, his hands balled into fists, but the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. There was no escaping this. They were cornered. She could feel the weight of their impending fate pressing down on them, suffocating the very air they breathed. "You need to come with us," the masked man said, his voice eerily calm despite the gun in his hand. "There's no use in running anymore. We know you're both here and we know you've seen too much." Samantha swallowed hard, her mouth dry. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to remain composed. "What do you want with us?" The masked man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at his partner, a hulking figure who still hadn't spoken a word, and then back at Samantha and Noah. "We want what Adam knew," the masked man said, his eyes flickering to Noah. "And we'll do whatever it takes to get it." Samantha's mind reeled. Adam. They were after Adam's secrets. But what exactly had Adam known? What had he gotten involved in? The mystery of his death and the reason behind it deepened with every passing moment. She had thought she was just caught in the middle of something she didn't understand. But now it was clear, this was bigger than any of them. What did he know? Samantha asked, her voice trembling. "Tell me, why does it have to be us?" The masked man stepped closer, his presence looming over her like a shadow. "Your involvement doesn't matter," he said coolly. "What matters is what Adam was trying to protect. We've been looking for the information he had. And now it's your turn to give it up." Noah's body tensed as he took a step forward, his expression hardening. "You won't get anything from us," he spat. "Not a single thing." The man with the gun didn't flinch. He merely shifted his stance, tightening his grip on the weapon. "You don't have a choice," he said flatly. "Give us what we want and maybe we'll let you go. But if you resist—" "Noah." Samantha's voice cut through the thick tension in the air. She reached for him, her hand trembling. "We have to get out of here. We can't keep fighting them. We need a plan." Noah glanced at her, his eyes conflicted. He knew she was right. But there was so much they didn't understand yet, so much they still had to figure out. "Get away from her," Noah barked, turning back to face the two men. He was trying to be brave, but Samantha could hear the fear in his voice, barely contained. The gun in the masked man's hand glinted again, and Noah's shoulders tensed. There was a long, breathless pause. The tension in the cabin was thick, suffocating. Samantha could hear the blood rushing in her ears as she looked around, trying to figure out an escape. There had to be a way out. They couldn't just give up, couldn't just accept whatever was coming next. But before she could make a move, a loud crash from outside the cabin sent her heart into overdrive. The sound of heavy footsteps on the wooden floorboards reverberated through the walls. "Someone's here," Noah muttered, his voice tight with urgency. "We're not alone." Samantha's pulse quickened. Who else could it be? Were they really trapped in here with no way out? Before anyone could react, the door to the cabin slammed open with such force that it shook the entire structure. The masked man turned abruptly, his gun raised, but before he could make a move, another figure rushed into the room, flinging the door wide open. Samantha's breath hitched when she saw who it was. Eva? Eva, her old friend, stood in the doorway, looking nothing like the woman Samantha had once known. Her hair was disheveled, her face pale, but her eyes, those piercing blue eyes, held a wild, dangerous look. She was holding a gun, her stance ready and focused. It was the kind of gun she'd never imagined Eva would ever hold, let alone use. "You don't want to do this," Eva said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Not with me here." The two masked men turned their attention to Eva, their expressions unreadable behind their masks. They seemed unfazed by her sudden appearance, as though they had anticipated it. "I thought we agreed to stay out of this," the masked man with the gun said coldly, lowering his weapon just slightly. "What are you doing here, Eva?" Eva didn't flinch. "You don't get to call the shots anymore." Her eyes narrowed. "You're both out of your depth. This ends tonight." Samantha couldn't believe what she was hearing. Eva, the same Eva who had been part of their group for years, was here, standing between them and the men who had been hunting them. But why? What had changed? And what did she mean when she said, "This ends tonight"? Samantha glanced at Noah, who was equally stunned by Eva's sudden arrival. But he didn't hesitate for long. He grabbed Samantha's arm and pulled her back, keeping her out of the line of fire. They were still in danger even with Eva there. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. "We don't have time for this," Noah said, his voice low. "Eva, what are you doing? You're putting us all in more danger." Eva's eyes flickered toward Noah, her face hardened with resolve. I'm doing what's necessary. We don't have a choice now. I came here to end this once and for all. A tense silence filled the room as the masked men exchanged looks, uncertainty flickering in their eyes for the first time. But just as the tension reached its peak, another loud bang echoed from outside the cabin. The door rattled and the sound of breaking glass followed. Eva's eyes widened in shock, but before anyone could react, a familiar voice called out from outside. Eva, get out of the way. The figure stepped into the doorway and Samantha's breath caught in her throat. It was Adam. But he couldn't be alive. Samantha's heart skipped a beat as she saw him. Adam. The man she thought she had lost forever, the man who had been in her life so suddenly, was now standing right before her, looking every bit as real as he had before. She blinked, unsure if her mind was playing tricks on her. This wasn't possible. No, she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. You're supposed to be gone. I saw you. Adam's face softened with a sadness that cut deep. His eyes were filled with sorrow and something else, something darker. I never wanted you to find out this way, he said, his voice low. But I need you to listen to me. I'm not here to hurt you, Sam. I'm here to protect you. Samantha took a step back, her pulse racing. Her thoughts spun, desperately trying to piece together the impossible situation in front of her. Protect me? But I watched you. I saw everything. I thought you were gone. Adam nodded gravely. I know, and I'm sorry. I faked my death to keep you safe. I was trying to escape from something I couldn't get out of. And now it's caught up to both of us. Noah stepped forward, his voice full of suspicion. Caught up to us? What are you talking about, Adam? How is this even possible? Adam's gaze flicked to the door, then back to Samantha and Noah, a clear sense of urgency in his movements. We don't have time to explain everything. But I can tell you this much, they're after something I took. Something that could change everything. And they won't stop until they get it. Samantha's mind raced. What are you talking about? What did you take? There's a list, Adam said, his voice tight. A list of names of people who've done terrible things, people with power who can control everything. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything. Samantha's heart raced as the weight of his words sank in. A list? What did that have to do with her? Noah shook his head, disbelief written across his face. So you faked your death to protect us from this list? Adam looked pained. Yes. I thought I could keep it away from you. But they found out about you, Sam. They're coming for you too. Samantha's breath hitched in her throat. Me? Why me? Because you're the key, Adam explained quickly. You're the last person who could lead them to where I hid it. They'll do anything to get their hands on it. And if they find you, they'll stop at nothing to make you give it up. Before Samantha could respond, a loud crash from outside interrupted them, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly. Adam's expression tightened. They're here. We need to move. Now. Noah didn't hesitate. You said they're after you. And you want us to go with you now? What's the plan? Adam met his gaze, his eyes serious. I'm not asking for your trust, but we don't have a choice. If we don't leave now, they'll take us. We have to destroy the list. It's the only way to stop them. Samantha's mind raced as the room seemed to close in around her. She had never imagined her life could be this tangled in danger. Everything she thought she knew about Adam was in question. But there was no time for hesitation. We're coming with you, she said, her voice trembling but firm. But I need to know the truth. What's really going on here? Why is this so important? Adam took a deep breath, his eyes showing a flicker of regret. The list isn't just about exposing powerful people. It's about stopping them from taking control of everything. If they get it, they can erase anyone who stands in their way. I couldn't let that happen, not to you, Sam. Not to Noah. The footsteps outside grew louder, closer. We're out of time, Adam said urgently. You'll understand everything soon. But right now we need to get to safety. This isn't over yet. Noah's hand rested on the handle of his weapon, his gaze never leaving Adam. I still don't trust you, Noah said, voice low. You've been hiding too much. Adam met his gaze evenly. I know. But we don't have the luxury of trust right now. All that matters is getting out of here. Samantha could feel the air in the room thicken with tension. The situation had escalated so quickly. She had never imagined that her life would turn into a game of cat and mouse, with danger at every turn. But she knew Noah was right. Something wasn't adding up. Adam was hiding something, and whatever it was powerful enough to make him fake his death and drag them both into a world they didn't belong to. Suddenly, A loud crash echoed from the door as it was forcibly kicked open. A tall, imposing figure stepped into the room. He was wearing dark, tactical gear and his face was obscured by a mask. A cold, hard smile crossed his lips. "Adam," the man said, his voice dripping with venom. "You can't keep running. You know that, right?" Adam's jaw clenched. "We'll see about that." The man's smile widened, but there was no humor in it. "You can't escape what you've done. You've made enemies. And now, we're here to finish this." Samantha felt the ground beneath her feet shift. The room seemed to spin with the weight of everything happening so fast. She had come here looking for answers, but now it seemed like she was caught in a dangerous game she could never have imagined. The stakes were higher than she ever realized. But before she could react, the man raised a hand, signaling for his team to move in. And then, the world went dark.